Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Bolduc. I'm the VP of Sales for the East Coast for Intelisys. Want to welcome all of you to today's webinar. It's a live one, so this is live, not recorded or anything like that. So, and the topic is, how to turn a $10,000 account into a $300,000 account by integrating a multi-vendor solution for your remote contact center agents. That's a lot and a big title to say, but want to summarize this and say, like, we have done this before. We did a webinar before, and then we did a session during Channel Connect in Nashville a couple months ago, and it went so well that we wanted to make sure that there was other education things going on at Channel Connect, or if you didn't get a chance to come to Nashville, that you had the opportunity to hear this story and the collaboration between, Evolve IP and Five9, two great suppliers in our portfolio, as well as, one of our top partners, Vic Pepe from D&M Enterprises. We also have Christy Thomas on for this, and she's going to jump in here in a second, and she's going to jump in and do a little bit more of the conversation around this. Because she's the expert and this is what she's been doing every day, and it just makes sense. So I'm going to pass this off to Chrissy and just wanted to say welcome and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Aaron. I don't know if I can uphold the title expert, but I'll certainly try today on a Tuesday. I'm still shaking off the turkey fog from Thanksgiving. I'm super excited about today's webinar for a couple of reasons. Number one is when I reflect on this year's events that we did at Intelisys, we spent a lot of time talking about within the CX portfolio, the concept of upsell, cross-sell, and why you as a partner should do that, not only for CX, but for other technology domains for your customers, and really the data behind the fact that majority of our partners have really only sold a handful, maybe one or two technologies to their customers, and there's so much more wallet share out there. So we talked a lot about the why, but we really didn't spend a lot of emphasis on the how. And so I am really excited about this conversation today because we have Vic here as our honored guest, along with Kelly and Gary, to talk about the how for a use case of a customer of theirs collectively. So with that, Vic, why don't I hand the mic over to you and talk a little bit about the history of this customer and how you've built it from $10,000 to $300,000 and the technology domains that you've brought forward to them.
Sure thing. Well, thanks for having me today, and nice to be on this virtual meeting with everybody out there today. A few years back, I received a call from somebody who was referred to me and who was in bed with a PE firm, and they were about to create a startup in a very known and big business. Predominantly will be a call center in the mortgaging space around servicing mortgage loans. And he said, "Hey, somebody told me to call you, said you were the guy to talk to. I need phones." That's where the whole conversation started. And at that point, I think at that moment, I became, officially, unofficially employee number 3 of the company. So he, I had spent 20 years in the mortgage business, and the fact that he was going to be doing something from the ground up, I was very excited. So we started having a conversation about his contact center, his voice, his phones, but he had nothing at this point. And so we started a whole round of ideation about, what he wanted to accomplish and how we could accomplish it. And things rapidly started moving to Evolve IP, desktop as a service, virtual private networks, UCaaS coming from the Evolve IP side, pre-Teams that has since migrated to Teams. And then he wanted to be brought on a journey to help select the contact center platform. So we went through that journey of helping select the contact center platform, and Five9 emerged as a shining star for his needs and for the business. Well, the interesting thing about it at that point is, I think this was 2018 when all of this really started happening. And, Five9 hadn't really driven their traffic over the Evolve IP DAS. Evolve IP hadn't had Five9 traffic coming over their DAS. But I had a client that wanted these things uniquely and said, they all have to work because this together is my full solution. I said, absolutely, will work. And initially, some of the resistance, which is normal, is like, hey, I can't, Five9 would say, I'm not really sure how it's going to work over that. I can't guarantee voice quality because it goes to an endpoint controlled by somebody else. And then the folks at Evolve IP say the same thing. Hey, we have a competing product. We can't control the voice path. But very quickly, when everybody realized that this was the combined best solution for the customer, both Evolve and Five9 jumped in, head first into really trying to make it work, because both of them were keenly interested in the growth that they were going to have independently and collectively. And so through a lot of testing and a lot of certification and a lot of real amazing collaboration, we started with a client that was less than, when it launched, there were 25 seats and there are over 1,400 today. But what has really arose from it, and this is where I'll pass to Gary and to Kelly, what arose from it was this beautiful realization that these two platforms are really hand in glove and they work famously well together. And aside from the revenue uptick, the customer is just gushing with satisfaction, not only individually from the providers, but really how they've partnered and how they work together. And everything you could imagine, from ease of deployment to security and controls to variable cost. I mean, heck, we helped them get a SOC 2 for their own business. And once we presented the architecture and the infrastructure being hosted in the Evolve IP cloud, DAS, 50 things came off the list and they started moving forward. Oh, the contact center, that's in the cloud, that's in Five9. So the process became probably about 70% simpler for them to achieve their SOC 2. Now, it wasn't without any work, but lots and lots of benefits. So great story. The count's gone on now for 4 years. It grows on the monthly for sure. There have been some ebbs and flows because it's financial services, but if you look at the line, it's a nice curve, nice straight line going up. And the partnership between the client, myself, and Evolve and Five9 really only gets better and better. And when you guys, by the way, I didn't say this to you in Nashville, but when you guys on your own got together and said, hey, we're really doing a great job and we have this amazing use case and we're going to ratchet that up and make a formal commitment, I was excited about that, because that means that, because we've continued to try to bring this product and have successfully brought you individually and collectively to other places. But the fact that you're really doing it on purpose and as a partnership, the story has just now exploded. It's purposeful. Everybody's kumbaya, as they say, and thank you guys in advance for that. So Kelly, maybe I'll pass it to you, and you can go from your perspective about how the journey went.
Yeah, so I mean, thank you for giving that overview. And I think, to your point, we did obviously have some trepidation on the front end of this. It was like, oh, you want us to work with a competitor, right? But not only understanding that from a vendor perspective, it was the right thing for the customer. This year we talk a ton about CX and what that really means. And so to me, this is the epitome of that. This is two vendors who would otherwise not ever play in the same sandbox at all, especially on the same size, same project. And we've come together and we've said, hey, this is what the customer needs. It also lent well that when we, obviously working through this, and then we come to a space like in the pandemic where they needed to be able to send and work from anywhere, right? Their teams needed to be able to work from anywhere, and going over Evolve IP's platform allowed their teams to do that and work in sync, still have all the regulations and things that they need, and be able to ratchet up, as you said, their employee base to be able to assist their customers. I think from a CX perspective, Five9 is always looking for an opportunity to reimagine how we interact with our customers. And to me, again, this is just the way that we did that. We took our platform, we spent the time building out this relationship with Evolve IP. And earlier this year, Gary and I were at an event and we were like, hey, how can we really submit this, put it into practice where it can yield, dividends for other partners again and again. And so then that brainchild yielded Gary and Evolve IP's team being a part of our CX marketplace. And so now they are a partner with Five9, and they're completely integrated, right? So I say all of those things to say, one, I shared this in Nashville too, so I'm gonna say it again. As we move in business, we understand that there are all these overlaps that are going to continue to happen. And if we lean into that, right, if we go together instead of trying to do things separately, we'll go further. That's an African proverb. But at the same time, if we leverage that in business, we're going to continue to grow and grow. And then this ecosystem that we're able to provide to our partners as a solution for their customers, this technology ecosystem will allow us to be able to deliver these experiences that we talk about all the time. It'll allow our customers to be able to be more nimble in how they approach their end users. And for us, obviously, selfishly for our partners and us, we're going to increase those sales. But at the end, really, it is about the customer retention. And then obviously the building of these partnerships. So, Gary?
You know, it's funny. I'll go back about a year. I first started talking to Christy Thomas, and she was begrudgingly saying to me, Gary, listen, if multiple vendors work on a project, you'll see even more success. Well, fast forward a year, I have completely drank that Kool-Aid. Going back to Vic's comments and Kelly's comments, what was very interesting about this client, we throw the term around, born in the cloud, right? They wanted to invest in technology. They did not want to invest in real estate. They wanted to invest, again, in technology and didn't want to invest in a lot of, IT people running around, procuring PCs and securing them. So the three things that come to mind as I think about this solution is mobility, right? As Kelly mentioned, right? This was before the pandemic. People were talking about mobile workforce solutions. Now we're all talking about remote workforce solutions because we've lived through that horrible experience of the pandemic. But back in 2018, it was about, we don't want to put people in offices. We want them to all work remotely. So it was about delivering a solution that could work over any device at any location. The next thing was, we don't want to have 200 people in our IT department. So we're looking for a solution that's complicated, but yet can be managed in a matter of minutes as opposed to days and weeks. And then finally, which has really reared its ugly head in recent months, is we've got to provide for security, right? So it's that whole concept of mobility, productivity, getting more from our IT staff, and security, right? And at least from the desktop perspective, we were able to accomplish this. Without question, there was some trepidation in the beginning as to, can we run all this voice through our desktop? And it turned out that, with the underlying providers, supporting real-time audio video was secondary. And what that enabled ServiceMac to do was not have a compliance issue by running the voice over WebRTC or running it locally. I do want to also echo one of the things that Kelly said, because and thankfully Intelisys was in the mix. We were in Houston, I think in the beginning of the year, and I'm like, we gotta try to formalize this thing, and then we'll get to do events like this. And with Kelly's help, and with the encouragement of Intelisys, we were able to put a deal together where we are now an endorsed desktop solution for Five9. So we're excited about that, and we want to continue to move forward. And then one final shout out to Christy is, we're all making a lot of money on this account, and it is one sticky account that would, I think Vic would say they'd be hard pressed to try to move out and on to something else.
Yeah, if I can, from an agent perspective, give you some good stats here. My first call was with the CEO and the CIO, who is now the COO. So there was nobody there. They had a, cloud first mindset and mentality. So I'm like, the unicorn is coming off the top of the head here. I'm like, this is perfect. We don't have to sell anybody on the cloud. But it's grown to over 1,400 people. They deployed this solution out to not only their own employees, but to their third-party relationships. Along with the desktop, you get RMM, you get Office 365, you get Mimecast. So you get DAS, you get domain services. So it's not just a DAS seat for 30, 40, 50 bucks. There's a lot of add-ons. Five9 has continued to grow. They add on more features and functionality in there as well. It's an amazing ecosystem. Each one of them has signed renewals. So, 3 years led to 6 years. To Gary's point, they're only going to want to leave if it's no longer providing hitting the marks for their solution. And that's, where we all stay close to the account and accounts like this to make sure that they're getting everything they paid for and then some, that they're getting a consummate level of service, care, and attention. From the D&M side that they have, we act as a client advocate. As much as my relationships with Kelly and with Gary are fantastic. I wear the customer's jersey first when it comes to what they need, and I have every indication that we'll continue. That 2.5 years from now, 2 years from now, we'll be heading into another renewal and it'll be very strong. And they continue to grow, and with every strategic acquisition they make, it's another 100, 200 seats that come on. So it's probably $250 a seat all in to 300, depending on the use case type, power user, administrator, et cetera. And that's across all of the solution in the stack that goes out there. So we're very thankful, not only for the client, of course, first and foremost, but we're thankful for the independent work that each of you guys have done, but more so now the collaboration, because that just ensures to me that we have this beautiful story to continue to go tell the customers. This one we're talking about here is one of few. That this is on purpose now. They kind of feel cool about it, by the way, too, because they know they participated in the success of the union. So there's some definite pride and ownership there. But just to if we had 10 more of these, it'd be a game changer. And this is what we seek out on a daily basis. The security piece, I'll tell you, is Garrett. You mentioned it. It's huge. Sorry, there was one last piece I wanted to dump in. We have recently found, like, when you bring this solution to technology people who are accustomed to buying infrastructure and bolting this stuff into racks and standing it up, there's a bit of resistance. Like, we could do that ourselves. The approach here is really to go at the C-suite, operations, maybe not even sometimes the CIO, but sort of a CFO. Because what happens is, and I can tell you from being a CIO 5 times prior in my career, and having done that at publicly traded companies, the thing I had to do best in my career on the other side of the desk was learn how to communicate to my colleagues and peers at a very easy level, so I was trustworthy, believable. I had a lot of data, I had a lot of facts. That doesn't always happen. So somebody comes walking in your office and goes, "I need another $1 million. I got a project shortfall," and the CFO looks at you like, "Do I even have an option?" Because they don't really know technology. What this solution brings is a massive amount of third-party expertise where they have now somebody who's accountable and can explain to them on a dollars and cents basis. So this is not only a great great product and product set for its solutions, but it sort of democratizes technology and sort of gives the CFO and the COO a whole other set of people, tools, and expertise to gain confidence in. That's a realization, even guys, I've had since the last time we've done this. I'm like, I really wish I mentioned that, because when I talked to the CEO of this particular company, he's like, "There's no voodoo in this solution." He said, "It's the easiest thing in the world." He goes, "The only time I've been in a solution like this where I'm only growing as I add people. I'm not getting hit with another renewal, or another maintenance fee that's just gone up 30%. And I'm not getting hit this, that, and the other thing." He said, "It's only getting better, and it's so predictable." He said, "And for me, predictability in this business is paramount. I got to be able to predict costs." So I'll leave it there. I'll share that I thought that was an important nugget that was also gained from this combined solution.
Vic, Kelly had coined a term the first time that we were talking about this, was the opportunity to sell adjacent services. And You mentioned it, but I cannot stress how critically important that has become in this project. I know from Evolve IP's perspective, what started out as a desktop opportunity grew into Microsoft licensing, grew into antivirus, grew into web filtering, grew into RMM. And then the last thing, Vic, that you mentioned, and this again goes back to Christy in this concept of the combined vendor solution. If I sold somebody UCAS and they added 10 seats, I'd get $80 in revenue and $15 in commission. Every time ServiceMac adds an employee, I think you said $150 to $250 of new revenue per employee.
Well, that's your side. It's if combined, it's almost 300. It could be as high as 300, depending on the seat. They super users with a ton of infrastructure in their seat? Are they admins on require an admin license on the Five9 side? So it could peak as high as $300 combined.
So, again, we're talking about, if they open up a new branch with 10 people in it, it's a $2,500, $3,000 ad. That's legitimate.
A monthly ad, by the way.
Yeah,
So
monthly could be.
And I'm gonna throw this over to Christy as well. Christy, you look like you want to jump in.
Well, there's so many things that Vic's saying that resonate with me that I based on the research that I've done around this in this particular use case, right? So when we started talking about the concept of adjacent sales through our amped events and upsell, cross-sell techniques, I couldn't figure out why we as sellers, we have a barrier to doing that, why we haven't been successful, because naturally you just think that you want to upsell and cross-sell because you already have this account, but it's not successful often. And that is because oftentimes your customer remembers you for the very first thing you sold them. That's it. And Vic, you could have been, because you started this conversation out, the phone guy. You could have still been that point solution seller of just selling the phones, but you changed. You became the solution provider for this organization. Yep. You were solving for business problems. And the other great thing around this too is that Kelly at Five9 and Evolve IP had the aha moment of ecosystem sales. We get better together for a customer if we collaborate in this. And this isn't profound. Salesforce has been doing this forever. Salesforce has an entire marketplace of some solutions that overlap what they do a little bit, but it's an adjacent sell for them, and it insulates the customer for solving for solutions. The other thing, Vic, that you said too is the CFO doesn't question the invoice because they have high utilization. If you can't utilize the solution, you don't see the value, that means you can't upsell, cross-sell. So all those adjacent technologies that you're talking about, that wallet share, Gary, that's out there, it's available to sell this account because they've utilized what they've bought up to this point. This is amazing.
I gotta add something that really that summarizes a lot of this, and I think will help a lot of the partners participating today. We exist in an industry based on the impending event. The impending event initially was, we need phones. Vic could have been reactive and found them a UCAS solution. However, the impending event when it comes to things like mobility and IT productivity and security is it's, to put this in the silliest of terms, you don't start looking for a security solution after you've had a breach, right? So what Vic did with this account was get away from the impending event, get away from the reactive sale, and take a step back with the client by saying, where do you want to go? Where do you want to ultimately go with this, right? Because I'm sure the client ultimately knew they were going to have 1,400 people. We didn't, It took a little convincing from Vic, but all the credit on this goes to Vic and D&M for not reacting to the impending event. I can't stress that enough. This was a very proactive sale.
It was, and I also want to underline the fact that they added value because of that, because of his experience, because of his background, because of the team's approach in bringing a holistic ecosystem together to solve this customer's needs. We were able to be successful, and now for many years over, right? He added value there. The other thing is we listened. And I think that's, as a sales organization or a sales organization, sometimes it's hard to just say, oh, I have a solution. So Gary, to your point, I'd just be reactive. But we listened, and we still listen. We have a technical account manager that sits on this account, and they are a tech company by all means, right? ServiceMac is an organization that can do it on themselves, but they understand the value of partnership. So that technical account manager has come in, and we've gone down a couple of different rabbit holes with them, not only with Evolve IP, where that's been more of a sticky solution, but with a bespoke financial services platform that they utilize in the background, and trying to figure out if we can customize that integration as well, right? And so when you have a partner like a Five9 and an Evolve IP with your customer that's saying, okay, let's whiteboard it out, right? We all like whiteboards. Let's whiteboard it out. Let's put it on paper. Let's see how far we can go down this trail. And if the integration sticks, then let's make it work. If it doesn't, then let's go to option B, right? And I think that's important to understand as these partners are taken away from this interaction, this conversation, that on multiple occasions, we've had to kind of go back to the whiteboard and figure out what's the right move forward for this customer.
I love that, Kelly. You're not, the approach is not forcing technology into an environment. It's solving for business problems and challenges that they have in a holistic approach, and not creating this tech Franken where it's not integrated. And that's the value that Vic and Evolve and Five9 bring to these conversations.
Yeah.
Hey Vic, how valuable is it to D&M's business to have a client like this in terms of, being able to utilize this? I know how valuable it's been to Evolve IP, and imagine how valuable it's been to Five9, and the fact that we've got our case studies built around it as well. But in terms of growing your business, how important has this win been, and to you and your ability to attract other clients?
It's been significant, and I'll tell you that the two obvious pieces are the ones where we say, hey, we've deployed a good secure framework around the desktop and domain services and things of the like with Evolve IP, and then to send, we've done that, we've repeated that, and we've got numerous Five9 customers as well, and we've repeated that. But I think the thing that's underlying was the value of our consultancy. And so that has told such a great story, because I'm easily able to tell the story of, hey, I got a call, and it was the CEO and the CIO, who's now the COO. And I knew it was a real deal because they had money from a big private equity firm to launch it. And the CEO is a guy I knew through the industry who had run the biggest books at Bank of America and at Wells Fargo. So I was like, oh, this thing's going to happen. And so, and they knew who I was through the industry. And so to be able to sit at the table, so to speak, and whiteboard with them, I even hosted a tech summit with all of their vendors and providers here in Dallas at our expense. I think I worked for a year for no money on this, which is more than paid for itself. But I was not only motivated by the sale, but motivated by the future and the opportunity. And Gary laughed. He said, yeah, everybody tells us this is going to be the next Beatles, right? It's going to be the next big thing. But I just knew with the players involved that this was going to be, 1,000 to 2,000 person company. And they continue to grow, continue to acquire, continue to do all the things I knew they would do. And it was a PE firm that doesn't fail. They've since sold to First American, so they're incredibly deep in the space and back. But Gary, again, simply to your point, selling the consultancy. So when people hear about us participating in all areas of the ecosystem, I'll tell you, it also changed our mindset a little bit. D&M is rooted in telecom and pipes and plumbing. Amazing back office. The people in our office are just unbelievable at solving customer problems in the traditional telco sense. But this, I think, has expanded everybody's sort of thinking and thought process around, only one product is the entry. And you don't know if it's a POTS line, a DAS seat, a virtual assistant. But once that happens, and when we put on the consultancy hat, this track record and, our continued success in doing this with other clients has really lifted our business in a big way. I don't think we have, I'd say at least 50% of our business right now is multi-vendor. There's no longer just, hey, this is the Lumen deal or this is the AT&T or the Verizon deal. At least 50% of our business spans across multiple vendors, creating solutions. And, the founder of D&M, Steve Gerhardt, he's got a big client out there for 8 years, started with POTS lines. We're going to take it all the way home. I mean, the amount of things that they know us for, and that's our job. Our job is to not fall into just being the voice guy or the telephone guy or gal or whatever. It's to continually put yourself in front of them, let them know what's in your ecosystem, let them know the expertise you have and can bring to bear so that they stop seeing you as that person. It's very hard, by the way, and Christy, I think it might have been you who said, hey, you could have just been the phone guy or the phone gal. And it's true. It's not easy to get people to relabel you once they know, because it still happens to us, by the way. We'll find out a client who, did some deal on the side you didn't talk about. And you're like, that's solution our ecosystem. It happens less and less these days, and it still stings when it does. But you have to get out there and let them know that you can serve at a much higher level and a far more sophisticated level. And Gary, again, as a recap, this has been very valuable to us. The multi-vendor proof solution, and it's really freed up our thinking to say, hey, and all things are possible, and people with good solutions will work together.
I got to add one thing because I want to make sure that people don't misunderstand. Valve IP's got a contact center platform that's got some capabilities to it, but it's not Five9, right? And it's interesting about all this. Intelisys put it all together. I mean, I know Vic through Intelisys. I know Kelly through Intelisys. When I first approached Kelly about trying to formalize the relationship between Five9 and Evolve IP, it was, was sort of based on, they got 50 agents. We might have a solution for them. They have 5,000 agents. They're probably not going to be real interested in us. And we both agreed that it was better for us to be a virtual desktop provider because desktops allows the agents to deploy things like Chromebooks as opposed to expensive PCs. And once we could prove out to the Five9 engineering team that we could handle all the audio and video through the desktop, it became a real simple thing to move forward. Vic, I see you saw the question from Mike about end users. I think that's worth repeating.
Yeah, so I'll dump that in. So the question was that users bring your own device. Has the company hired any IT staff since the original conversation, or is everything they do in the cloud and or Microsoft and other apps? It's for the size of the company, it's the leanest IT staff that I've seen in my career. They have some custom app work and some custom app dev. They made a conscious decision that if I'm going to have an IT person, they're going to do one of two roles. The primary role is they're going to create something unique to our IP. I'm going to employ people who are going to create unique to our IP stuff. So they have some of their own apps and interfaces to the client that they wanted to own and create the experience on. And then they have a handful, a small handful, I think it's 2 in general support that provide an interface between the company and the respective companies. But yes, it's with the exception of their custom dev, they're largely cloud-based as a service entities. Very, very small amount of IT staff in this particular company.
They also lean on you, don't they, Vic? They also lean on some of yours.
Yeah, we have an engineer here that is assigned to them that they buy a bucket of hours on a quarterly basis, probably 600 hours a year. And he probably does, I don't know, 3,000 hours worth of value, easy, because he knows the systems, the people. He's there for an escalation. He can do small projects for them because he's done them dozens of times. He just knocks it out, and they love it. So they do leave on us a little bit. The BYOD, the device they use, by the way, is called a 10-zig zero client terminal. It's one of the few that has true zero client footprint, but also allows for web remote administration. Really great device. Again, another device that I would tell you early on, the Evolve guys, we don't know that device. We encouraged them to take a look at it. They did. And since they're like, yep, this is great. It's great for the client. Prior to that, it was a Wise, Dell Wise terminal kind of deal, but massive success. And they have a mix of BYOD as well. So when they bring on a third party, they'll say, okay, you have your desktop and footprint. Here's the Horizon client, launch it. Here are your credentials to log in. Here's your dual factor, boom, and you are now on the platform. And so that's been the beauty of the deployment as well. You can do a mix of all of that.
Yeah, for anybody that's on the call that's unaware of this, the Five9 client is embedded in the Evolve IP golden image. So, that's kind of the neat thing is once you've got the image, you can deploy it over any device.
Yeah. I also want to say that, like, to me, as we've continued this conversation and presented on it a couple times, is that to me, this is like a lesson in just getting back to the basics. Like this reframe of like what a true discovery looks like for your customer, and taking the time again to listen and be able to say, okay, let me look into my toolkit, see what resources are in my ecosystem that will allow us to solve this for you, right? For me, that's just coming up for me all the time with this particular opportunity. And ultimately, we're having this conversation live is because we want the partners that are listening right now to be able to do the same thing. Now, whether that means that you bring in Evolve IP and Five9 to help you do that, which obviously we'd love for you to do that, but more so just to take away that you don't have to be a one-stop shop. You don't have to be reactive, but you certainly should be mindful of who you're talking to, what their intentions are, what they're trying to solve for, not just now, but in the future, right? And really listening and saying, all right, let's get back to whiteboarding. Let's break this down and figure out what are the steps of this integration that are going to work. Because one of the things that this has also done outside of curating a really strong partnership between Evolve IP, ourselves, and D&M and Intelisys, is that it also has opened our eyes to other integrations that we can have that will obviously help this customer, but help other customers as well in the future. Integrations that we would have never even thought about having, right? So you talk about the Zig Zero client terminal. For us, it was another software company that we could work with as well. And then these ecosystems just get stronger and stronger. So we're bringing, a more solid solution and transformation over to your customer.
Yeah. And I would say going into this next year, the conversations that you're most likely going to have with customers is how are you going to help them navigate through an economic downturn? And making investments in technology, they've got to do one of two things. They either have to drive top line revenue. It's got to be somewhere where it's growing the organization, or it has to add in operational efficiencies and agility. And this story that Vic tells is all about operational efficiencies and agility that's giving the business. And that's the story that resonates with a C-suite. Not what the technology necessarily is what is a benefit for the organization? And this solution holistically drives that. And so that's why you'll continue to see that momentum with this organization. The other thing too, Kelly, is with the operational efficiencies and agility, an ROI using, your organization's team to come in and do value consulting along in collaboration with Evolve IP to look at the financials of what they're bleeding from inefficiencies in an environment today, and then putting in a solution like this for your customer. That's how you get past status quo. That's how you get towards no decision making, is leveraging those consulting firms that you have access to within your organization.
Yeah.
This sounds like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say this sounds like a good segue to final thoughts and wishes for the new year. But I think you wanted to pose a question before I went into my spiel.
I have a question for Vic. So this is a great story, and it tells a lot about D&M and the tailwinds that your organization has now after kind of pivoting to this new consulting practice. But going into next year, Vic, what do you think your biggest headwinds are, and how are you going to tackle those, or what are you looking to do as a partner in the community?
Well, certainly a little bit, around the uncertainty of the economic times, and the flux are going to be different. So we're looking at markets that will be less impacted versus more impacted based upon research and data, and some of our own gut, but mostly research and data. We're going to be focusing on in those domains and sectors first and foremost. Secondly, I'll give you a little secret sauce here. Some people are just Azure lovers. Right? They're going to say, oh, I just have Azure desktops and I can do it myself. So here's some of the answers that have worked for us. If you go direct to Azure, you're going to get a desktop, you're going to put a credit card in, your relationship's going to be with your email client or their portal for tickets. You're not going to have anybody to speak to. There's not going to be anybody to troubleshoot problems. Azure in and of itself natively is not optimized and significantly tuned for real-time audio video. So you're getting a level of expertise, and these are the answers you can give your clients. And then lastly, and maybe the biggest thing to say is, since the initial deployment of DAS through my experience, Evolve has come up with an answer for, well, what if they just insist on being in Azure? Evolve will deploy their desktop solution in Azure in the client's tenant. And so I have another customer that's starting to engage in dialogue on the possibilities of doing that. So now they have the best of all worlds. They get their little Azure ecosystem, they get proximity in their tenant, they get all this stuff, they get all the Microsoft good feels, but now they have a world-class organization that has committed to tuning the desktop for real-time audio video, that's now got a platform like Five9 certified on it, and there's a partnership there, and those things continue. So it's a little bit about what we're thinking about, but also a little sort of, medicine for, the ills of somebody who may be resistant to coming out of the Azure world, or they're moving the rest of their infrastructure to Azure. Lastly, we have done every test known to man internally with our own engineering staff, comparing performance on Amazon Workspaces and the Evolve piece and DAS and desktop native in Azure. It's working better in Evolve all day long, and we were able to use some tools to empirically provide data around how much better. In some cases, it's significantly faster. And again, I go back, who are you going to call when you got a problem? We pick up the phone or open up a ticket. We've got an army of people from Evolve supporting our customers. Some it took a while for them to realize that. Some get it right away. I mean, they don't want to have a relationship. They don't want their business relying on a relationship with somebody's ticketing system. They want to have somebody who's going to come sit down with them, have a quarterly meeting. I mean, I know there's regular meetings on the Five9 side. There's also a weekly that goes on the Evolve IP side. Every Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Central, there's a call, and it's D&M, it's Evolve, it's the infrastructure folks that, like manage the help desk and have overall responsibility for oversight on security. They get together, they review any open tickets, they talk about projects, follow up on stuff. And I will tell you, in the last couple months, I've seen an email come in on Wednesday night from the business saying, no need for tomorrow, everything's cool, we got one ticket, we know why it's open, see you next week. So, when that's happening, there's some good stuff going on there.
So
take us home, Gary.
Yeah, you know what? I'll give you some final thoughts here. And first of all, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have, Vic is a great partner. I'm grateful for my years of friendship with Kelly and the relationship with Five9, and I'm glad to know Christy Thomas because she's taught me a few things or two over the last 18 months. One of the things I will say is that we come from an environment where we are used to selling off that my customer's UCAS contract is coming to an end. My circuit is needs to be replaced. I need more bandwidth, right? We're used to working off of the impending event. In this post-pandemic environment, maybe pre-recession environment, the concept of being proactive has never been more meaningful, right? Everybody is now dealing with the fact that 90% of their employees never go into the office. So they have a mobility challenge, they have a IT productivity challenge, right? And they have a security challenge. And I can tell you, if you're working off of the impending event, right? Of course, we talked earlier about the ridiculous one. You don't start looking for endpoint management after you've had a breach. You need to get to that before. You don't start looking for an IT solution that offers you productivity after you've hired 10 more people. You want to do it before you do that. Now, that requires a different skill set and a different type of thinking. So I certainly would encourage you to reach out to Christy or Kelly or Vic or me. But that's really the number one thing I can tell you is we've got to get away from the impending event. We've got to get away from a reactive sales strategy, and we've got to be proactive from the perspective of where do you want to be in 12 months, right? What's your goal? Let's not talk about the fact that your UCAS is out of contract. Let's talk about where you want to go. So that's my thoughts, Christy. Callie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing in that partnerships at a time like this, at a time where we're coming out of a pandemic, pre or in the middle of a recession, are really what's going to help to find solutions for our customers. And those partnerships, as a partner, your responsibility is to add value. So you should know who's in your ecosystem, who you can leverage and who you can lean on. That means spending time, obviously, with Intelisys. Christy's built an amazing program. In your CX program, Christy, what you guys have done this year has been impactful, not only to the partners, but also the vendors who want to continue education. And I would say as a partner, you need to leverage those resources, those education resources. Now, selfishly, as a vendor, we also have our own resources as well that help to add on to or go side by side with what Intelisys has built out. So in our partner portals, we have certification so you can understand what is CCAS, what is DAS, how we go to market, what that looks like, and how to build that partnership if you don't currently have one with us today. I'd also like to say that leveraging those resources also means that it's a continual education. It's a continual add-on. Like, once you figured out how to spell CCAS and DAS, then you need to learn who your stakeholders are, right? Who the personas are in these various businesses for you to leverage that, and who you need to talk ROI with versus who you need to talk like visibility and usage with. And so I think that once we can do that as a channel, once we can really lean into these partnerships and trust in each other, which I think is very different than when I entered this channel space a few years ago. I think that we'll be able to find our way through these challenging times. So that's what I would say. That's it.
I mean, that's a mic drop.
All right.
So Aram, did you want to take us out, close us, or did you want me to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I just, a couple of things too. The audience out there, thank you so much for dedicating 52 minutes of your time today. I know that out of all the things in life, this is the most valuable thing that's precious to us is time. So we appreciate it. It means you're spending some time to learn. You're spending some time to think differently about your business. And so we appreciate you making the time within your day. To Vic, Kelly, and Gary, thank you. Same goes to all three of you guys. You are amazing individuals and thought leaders in our space. And so you collaborating and having this panel with us today is very, very appreciated. And I think with that, I want to wish you all, I can't believe I'm saying this, happy holidays. Like what happened this year, but happy holidays to all of you. And look forward to seeing you in person real soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Likewise, same to all. Bye now.